All right, so January was one of those months where I didn't read a lot. I only finished 2 books, which is not very many, but I really like these books, so I want to talk about them. Also, I just got braces a couple days ago, so sorry if my voice sounds a little off. I'm still trying to get used to them. So yeah, like I said, I read 2 books, and both of these books, if you describe the plot to people, I feel like they wouldn't sound very interesting, but both of these books made me feel a certain type of way. I really, really loved them. The first book was Stoner by John Williams. This is such an amazing book. It's fairly short. It didn't take me very long to get through it, but wow, it was just amazing. So the plot of Stoner is very, very unexciting, which might put a few people off of this book, but I'm telling you, it's amazing. It follows this man named William Stoner, and we pretty much just follow him throughout his entire life. His life isn't very interesting, and I think that's kind of the point with this book. He lives a very normal life, a pretty sad life, actually. Nothing crazy happens. Well, there are a couple kind of crazy things that happen, but just nothing like insane. He's raised on this farm, and eventually he goes off to study at college. I'm pretty sure he was studying agriculture, but he falls in love with reading there, decides to pursue an English degree, and he eventually becomes a professor. And I'm going to try not to spoil it, but pretty much he just lives a pretty normal life, gets married, has kids, and we follow him all the way throughout his life. But what I found really interesting about this book is that it doesn't try to justify itself to you, I guess. It's not trying to convince you that there is some greater, I don't know, it's not trying to convince you that his life is special. I don't know if that makes sense, but there's so many moments where you're reading this and you're just like, where's this going? Nothing's really happening. He's just kind of growing up, and I realized I was like halfway through this book and I was just kind of confused as to where it was going. But the writing is so well done, you just cannot stop reading it. I don't know where I heard this, but I once heard someone say if there's an author that can write a not very interesting story in an entertaining way, then that means they're a really good author. And that's how I feel about John Williams. This was my first book by him, but after reading this, I really want to read some more. But this book is just so real. It shows you how fast time can fly, and he makes a few mistakes in this book. He's not perfect. You really get to know the main character. You kind of fall in love with the character. He's not perfect though. He makes mistakes, but he never complains at all. He's always just going with the punches. He just lets his life flow, and he doesn't try to interrupt it. He never tries to change things. He just goes with the flow, and it's pretty interesting to read. He's not assertive at all. He's not this hero. He's just a very normal guy. And there are some really sad things that happen to him, and you'll be thinking in your head as you're reading like, oh, come on, just say something or do this. Like, you can get out of this situation, but he never does. And I guess it's kind of sad, but it's also, I don't know, it just made me realize that there's probably a lot of people out there that live just like him, and they just are very passive, I guess. It is such a satisfying reading experience. Even though the plot doesn't seem interesting, reading it is so entertaining, and I could not put this down. The book does a great job of describing how life can kind of close in on you slowly. There doesn't have to be a dramatic moment or anything big. There can just be a series of small things that can shape your life, I guess. Another thing I really liked about this book is how the main character just loves literature. He loves reading. He loves writing. He even writes a book, but he never becomes well known for it. He just stays at this college as a professor. He has some things happen at the college. He's not really friendly with everyone there. He runs into some issues, but he's never really celebrated. He's just kind of this very average, relatable character. And I found that to be really moving, especially in the world we live in today, where with social media and everything, you want to feel validated, and he just finds meaning in his life from these little things, and he doesn't need a lot. And there's just something so moving about the main character in this book, I'm telling you. And a little bit more on the writing, it's very simple. It's not very dramatic at all. Everything that happens is written pretty plainly. It's just, the author isn't ever telling you how you need to feel about something. It's just told as it is, and you just feel the emotions, if that makes sense. Even though this book seems like it would be really slow, it is pretty fast paced because it does follow his entire life in just a couple hundred pages. So it's still very entertaining, and it really does show how fast time can pass in someone's life. It is just a really sad book about this ordinary guy. You read all about his mistakes, his suffering, and it was pretty devastating, but also the ending, I really loved the ending. It all kind of comes together and makes sense in its own way. I would definitely want to reread this in the future because there's definitely more to get out of it, but wonderful, wonderful book. It kind of reminded me that life doesn't really owe you anything. It can just pass by, and I don't know, it makes you think really deeply about things, but such a good book. Highly recommend this if you haven't already read it. I know it's fairly popular, but definitely go read this if you haven't. So good. All right, the next book I read was Madonna in a Fur Coat by Sabahattin Ali. This book is absolutely devastating. This is not a happy love story. It is a love story, I would say. It's a very unique love story. I have read nothing like it before. It's very unique, but it is definitely not happy. It's very, very sad. In the book, we follow this young man. He works this job and his coworker is this older guy. And at the beginning of the book, he does not really like this older guy. He finds him annoying. He kind of bugs him. But as more time passes, he starts to be more fond of this older guy. Eventually, he starts going over to his house and gets to know him more. And eventually, he gets a hold of his journal and he decides to read this old guy's journal. And that's kind of where the story starts. So the rest of this book is just this older guy's entire life. We learn that he was this very shy, awkward young man that felt like he didn't have a lot going for him. He ended up moving from Turkey all the way to Germany. He learned how to speak German, but he was very alone there. He didn't have like any friends, and it was pretty sad. But one day while he's wandering around, he comes across this painting that he falls in love with. It's this painting of this beautiful girl, and he can't get her out of his head. And he falls in love with the painting, and it goes in depth about this. And there's kind of this idea that the art understands him better than other people, or he feels drawn to this art piece more than anything else in his life, and he finds himself going there every day. And I don't want to spoil it any more than that, but he ends up meeting this young woman that he falls in love with in a very weird way. It's kind of one-sided, but at the same time it's not. It's really weird. And then this tragic love story just unfolds. And it is very tragic. It's all about longing for emotional support, for love. But yeah, the main theme of this book is longing. He lives pretty much all of his life feeling unseen, and it is not a happy ending at all. It is very sad. All the characters in this book are very well written. I found that very refreshing about this. In my opinion, there was a lot of depth to all the characters. They all had their own unique personalities, and they all surprise you in their own ways. A lot of the emotions that the main character in this book feels go unsaid. He doesn't express himself very much, but you really get to know him through all of his thoughts because you get to read them, you know. So this book kind of made me think about the different versions we have of ourselves. The version that's more internal, that we keep to ourselves and don't show to other people, and also the version that we do show to people, how we express ourselves, and how these two different versions can sometimes be pretty different from each other. But the other sad thing about this book is that there are times where you feel like he can do something to fix the situation he's in, but he just doesn't. He just lets it happen. And oh man, especially near the end, a lot happens where you're just like, oh, I don't know. It's so sad, man. This is a very, very strange romance book. I don't think it's for everybody, but I really liked it. But the story is just given to you and you just have to sit with it. And it feels very real. Yeah, it was overall a very powerful book. I really liked it. I need to read more from this author. It made me want to move to a new country like the main character does. I don't know, it's just great. Both of these books were like solid 4.5 out of 5 stars. So I'm really happy with this selection, even though I only finished 2 books this month. They were both so good. So I was pretty lucky and I'm pretty happy about that. Definitely recommend both of these. And the only other thing I've been reading this month is War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy. I've been trying to do a slow read of this. I've mentioned it before, but I'm trying to just read one chapter every single day. And it was going well. And then about halfway through the month, I just kind of lost interest. It's not that I'm not liking the book. I don't know. I just got caught up in other things, and you wouldn't think one chapter a day would be hard, especially when the chapters are only a couple of pages, but I don't know. I think maybe that's why I kind of slacked off, because I just figured, I could just read a couple pages more the next day. But yeah, I'm about a week behind, and it's kind of bad because this is just the first month. So I hope I can finish this. I think I still can. I'm hoping February is the month where I get caught back up with it. But my first impressions are, this is going to be a very difficult book. I was expecting that, but yeah, I don't know. There's so many characters, and I know it's just the very beginning, so I'm trying to get to know all of the characters as best as I can and just to understand the story, but it is pretty difficult. I'm going to continue with the slow read, of course, but I am behind. I will catch up though, mark my words. And if I don't, you guys gotta hold me accountable in the comments. All right, and that's all that I read in January. It was a pretty solid month. I didn't read a lot, but I really liked what I read. For next month, I don't really know what I'm gonna be reading yet. I picked this up. If anyone's read this, let me know if it's good. I've heard good things about it, so that's pretty much all I have for next month though. I have a couple of other books that I want to read, like East of Eden. That's another pretty long one. Also The Idiot by Dostoevsky. I need to get to that. Let me know what your suggestions are for February. And thank you for watching the entire video. Thanks so much for all the support. I'm just stoked that all you guys like the video, so I'm gonna keep making more. Let me know if you guys want to see any specific videos in the future. Also, I'm just curious if you guys like this style of content or not, or if you want to see something a little bit more long form or more ramble-ish, I guess. Yeah, let me know what you guys think. Thanks for watching though. Peace out.